Father Martin, welcome back to the program.
Good morning, Art, and how are you?
I am very well. Better than the news. I want to tackle right away, Father, a couple of breaking kind of news stories. One, I started getting messages that an exorcist, one that you may know, was very brutally murdered in America. What do you know about that, Father?
Yes, the one man we're both thinking of, his name was Alfred Kuntz, and he was a parish priest in Dane, which is a parish in Ohio, in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, all right.
In Wisconsin, and he was found at 7 o'clock in the morning with his throat cut from ear to ear.
His throat cut?
Yeah, from ear to ear, in his own blood, face down into it, and with obviously various acts of desecration of his body, which are normally associated with Satanist-inflicted death. Father Kuntz, of course, and by the way, he was a very popular parish priest with his people. He had done exorcisms, but very, very private. Most of us don't talk about them because they usually involve confessional material, and Father Kuntz was a very good priest and never spoke about confessional material.
Had he been in communication with you?
Yes, we had been in communication.
Do you know offhand if he was doing anything at the time? I'm sure the police are probably asking about this, but I mean, it's an obvious question.
They are, and they are refusing to give any of the more lurid details of the mode of his death, for the simple reason that they don't want to. They suspect it's somebody within his vicinity, not a stranger. And there are only, I think, a couple of hundred people. Well, no, about 700, 800 people involved. There's certainly it's not a random act of violence, somebody who wanted to steal or was caught in the act of stealing and simply flailed out. They're convinced it wasn't a random act like that, that was a deliberately set up thing, and that at least one person was involved in it, perhaps more. Kuntz himself had just been doing radio shows with a priest friend whom we all know very much, Father Fiore, and they returned home late at night, late being about 10 o'clock in the evening, and we know that he was alive at 10:30 because he made a telephone call or received a telephone call, I forget which, but then the following morning at 7 o'clock, a young man who came to assist him at Mass, etc., found him lying, as I said, in his own blood, with this very, very sinister mode of death etched on his body. There's no doubt about it that it is related. Whether it's related to his very confidential activity as a priest in regard to covens of warlocks in neighboring areas, we may never know. We may never know. We may never know because, number one, the police have a habit in this country that whenever there's, and it's a good habit on the whole, whenever there is any real Satanist activity of a shocking kind, they don't publish the details that indicate the Satanist connection. They just they publish the bare details of a murder.
Why do you think that, Father?
Well, it's also, you're asking me why I think it's a good idea in general, because it doesn't evoke the copycat syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
These things do, because about 200 years ago, they stopped doing exorcisms in public precisely because it evoked the copycat syndrome in people, imitators.
Well, you have told me many times, since you have done so many exorcisms, that there is real, very serious, very real danger. Is it not possible? It's got to be possible that that in his work, in some way, in the middle of some exorcism, or as part of an ongoing one, or you know, who knows?
I have no doubt about the answer to your question. I can foresee and interpret, is no doubt about it. The death was not random. It was not an act of personal vengeance, somebody who got annoyed at him for some particular thing. It was in connection with his work as a priest and in the area of demonic possession.
Father, have you ever been concerned at that level? Have you ever, without being specific, because I know you can't about specific exorcisms, but have you ever been concerned for yourself in?
Yes, very.
Same way?
Very, very same way. But you learn after a certain time to take that added risk, and you take precautions. But yes, surely, and at times the menace or the threat is more patent, more obvious than at other times. Sure. And sometimes it's quite voluble, it's quite expressive. You're warned. And more than one good priest in that part of the world, especially one or two very prominent ones, got telephone calls pointing out that they will go the same way.
Oh?
Yes, and one of them actually had to hire a bodyguard, or was given a bodyguard by the police because of his prominence.
Well, you've been a very prominent exorcist. Have you received threats?
Oh, yes, in the past, yes. Not recently, but in the past, yes, very much.
Not as part of this or connected?
No, not part of this, because I wasn't in any way related to this. And as one person told me, sort of happily, because we don't belong to an umbrella organization, exorcists, in other words, those engaged in this area, because we don't belong to an umbrella organization, they can't identify every one of us and therefore pick us off. But they do, we are picked off, all right, there's no doubt about that. And they're not the first. Father Kunz is not the first priest who was picked off as a priest, and as somebody who blocked or interfered with or spoiled Luciferian plans. There's no doubt about that.
Well, the fact that he is now dead would tell me that Luciferian plans are somehow still underway in whatever case.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are.
Is evil in America, evil in the world, increasing?
Well, the only way I can answer that question without sort of sensationalism, Art, is as follows, that since 1972 or 3, when the group I am associated with started, and it's a very quiet, discreet group, but since then, incidences and types of demonic assault have increased. First of all, the increase has been about 750% since that time.
750%?
About 750, judging by figures. And this is in the northeast corner of America, the tri-state area essentially, although it takes in outlying areas too. But then the types of possession, we have now the two phenomena that are very interesting. We have the phenomenon of the 20-something or 30-something that comes and says, look, Father, I wanted such and such a job, or I wanted to get this particular woman. I wanted to make this marriage.
Yes.
I wanted this money. And I made a pact with Satan, with the devil, and I got it. And now he won't let go of me. This didn't occur before, in my experience, that in the limited experience I had. And secondly, then there's the...
This is how recent, this phenomenon, how recent?
The last 10 years.
The last 10 years.
Last 10 years. And then there is also the second form, which is a bit off-putting, to put it mildly, that we now find the age is younger. We find children, those that we would technically call children, 6 years old, who are obviously not merely obsessed, but on their way to full possession.
There was a recent case in Arkansas that I'm sure you heard of, in which a couple of young fellows decided they were going to kill their classmates and teachers and pulled a fire alarm.
Yes.
And brought rifles and lots of ammunition and simply started shooting students and teachers.
That's right.
Just started shooting.
That's right. I wish I knew the details of that case, but again, the police are singing mum, as they say. They're saying nothing about the details, and there's a great protectiveness web wove around those young,
of course, yes, juveniles, yes.
Juveniles. But we don't know the details of it at all.
An awful lot of that going on, if that corroborates what you were saying.
There is, and there's much more than is reported in public by the media. And in several states, there's an agreement, sort of an unwritten agreement between the police and the governor. There's an unwritten agreement that no details will ever be published without formal permission by the media or by the police of any obviously Satanist or Luciferian happening